All right, so we'll go ahead and dive in and get started. So again, morning and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sheyi Shambore, and I will be taking you through, Creo Design Essentials Human Factors module. Right. All right, so we'll get started here. First thing we'll look at is, this is going to be our agenda that we're going to follow. First off, we'll just do a quick introduction into who we are, boundary systems. Next, we'll dive into talking about the human factors module. We'll show a very short demonstration on what you can do with it, and then we'll wrap it up with some Q&A at the end as well. Now, just by way of housekeeping, I'll mention, if you're joined into GoToMeeting, and so all the attendees are currently muted, and so the only way that you'd be able to communicate with us is on the right-hand side of your screen. There should be a GoToWebinar control panel. You should be able to click on a red arrow to pull it out if it's collapsed, and you can type in any questions you have in there, and so. So that way, as we're going through the webinar, if questions come up, type them in there. It'll show up over on our side here, and we'll be able to answer those as time goes on. And again, everyone is muted to prevent any, background noises or crosstalk as well. Cool. All right, so just a quick introduction into who we are, Boundary Systems. So we are a product development consulting company based out of Cleveland, Ohio, but really we have a reach that's global, and we specialize in anything from simulation to CAD design and development to a lot of CAD data management as well, and really anything that you can do digitally in the product development space, we have experience and expertise in, and we've helped our customers do great things with our products as well. All right, so that's it by way of introductions. We'll dive right into the human factors module. What is the CDE Human Factors module? First off, the Human Factors module is something that's been recently introduced in Creo Design Essentials as part of the Creo Design Essentials licensing package. Right, it's recently been added into that. And so the question is, well, to get people to know what it is that they're going to be paying for, what is it and what does it do? I'll use a couple of pictures first off to illustrate the concept, right? So in this example over here, we have this, cyclist here who, I guess, currently they don't have their hands on the handlebars, right? But the concept in this picture, which everyone intuitively understands, right, is that in order to make a product, aka in this case a bicycle, right, I have to design it such a way where the bicycle mechanically can perform as it should and move and transport people, but because it's made to transport a person, right, the person has to be able to interact with the bicycle, right? So the pedals, for example, have to be at a level where someone can get on the bike, right, sit on the seat, right, and still be able to reach the pedals, right? And so then that we're then talking about, the seat and the pedals and their geometry and their lengths, right? Or for example, the handlebars should be at a good enough distance from the seat, so that way a person can comfortably reach and hold the handlebars without having to stretch or put themselves in an uncomfortable position, right? But then the other thing that also comes into account is, for a bike like this, the variety of people that you're interacting with also matters as well, right? So if my older brother who's 6'5", right, gets on that bike, he should be able to sit on that and ride comfortably, right? And yet, if my grandma, who's 5'2", right, and is pretty small, sits on that bike, she should find a comfortable position that she can, be able to set the bike to and also ride as well, right? And so not only do you have to deal with, positions and everything for a particular person, but you also have to deal with a wide range of sizes as well, right? A wide range of, arm lengths and leg lengths and body sizes as well, right? And so really that means that that designing for humans, whenever you have products that are going to be used by humans, designing for humans becomes a critical factor in the product design process, because you don't want to have a case where you go ahead and build a prototype only to find out that it's not user friendly, right? Or whatever you're trying to have the user do is impossible because of the configuration of your model, right? Now I'll use another example here. In this case over here, we have again a scenario that everyone is pretty familiar with, right? So you're riding in your car and you can sit in there and you can do whatever you want to do in terms of driving, reaching the steering wheel, having your legs reach the pedals, being able to reach and tune the radio or change the air conditioning vent settings or things like that, right? Well, what you're taking for granted, right, is the fact that, again, my brother who's 6'5" can sit in the driver's seat, right, and drive that thing, right? Or a friend of mine who's under 5 feet, right, can still sit in the driver's seat and still be able to drive, right? Still be able to move the seat to where they can reach the pedals, right? They can hold the steering wheel, they can reach the air conditioning controls, and more importantly, in this case here, they can see outside of the windshield, right? They're not going to have the dashboard obstructing half their view, right? All of those things, again, it's a consideration where you're designing a product, right? But it's going to has to be suitable for humans, right? And so an easy example in this case is if I put, if I design this dashboard and the radio is too far out to the right, right? Well, it becomes uncomfortable to reach out and change it, from the driver's seat without, for example, having to stretch or without putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, right? And so again, those two different scenarios just give a picture in the mind of what the human factors module is intended to do. And so now we'll dive into what it is specifically. And so the Creo Design Essentials Human Factors module is really intended to perform a lot of digital human modeling, right? So it's a way for you to take anthropomorphically, and permit me for saying that, it's not an easy word to say, so anthropomorphically correct models of a human body from different population data, and place them on your Creo designs, right? And then be able to test, the fit and function of your model with a human on top of it, right? And so if they're supposed to reach a certain item, can they reach that? Or if they're supposed to be seated in a certain configuration and be able to see something, right? Can they see that comfortably, or is half of their view obstructed by the windshield because, or sorry, not by the dashboard because the person in there is 5 foot and the chair isn't high enough to accommodate for that, right? And so you can use that to evaluate different design scenarios and make sure that you're designing your product for the widest population density possible, right? Or that your target population can use your product effectively, right? And so really that's what sort of what Creo Design Essentials Human Factors module does, is it pulls in there a human model based on the correct arm and limb sizes and leg lengths and body weight and center of mass and center of gravity as well, for different human populations, right? And then you could start to and also based on the correct limb movements as well, right? So the same way I can't invert my elbow the opposite way from where it bends, right? I can only bend it up to 90 degrees one way. All of those movements on the mannequin behave exactly the same way, and so you could start to test out again how people can move and interact with your product, right? Now, why does it matter? Well, a few things. One would be that you can start to target your design for a specific population, or you can design for your target population, right? You can create your design in mind knowing that whoever your target population is can comfortably use your product, right? You're accommodating for humans. You're not, and this is always a challenge with design, is do you build your product and have humans accommodate to use that product, right? Or do you build your product accommodating for humans, knowing that they're going to use it, and the easier they find it, to use, the more, people are going to purchase that product as a result of that, right? So really, I think, in this particular case here, accommodating for humans is really critical, right? To ensure that when they're sitting or using or interacting with your product in any way, it's very comfortable, very easy to use, and that can lead to a dramatic increase in adoption, increase in sales, increase in revenue, or things like that, because people find your product much more easier to use, right? All right, so we'll pause here and we'll dive into a quick demonstration of the software. So we'll hold on here while I switch screens. All right. Yep. Cool. So I'm in here. All right. So we're here and we see this example of this person sitting on this bike that we're designing, right? Now, how do we get to this point, right? So I'll sort of take a step back and show some other I guess we say background information, right? So in this case here, the human factors module is contained in this tab over here called the Manikin tab, right? And basically, when I go here and I say I want to go insert a mannequin, right? So the first step in the human factors is specifying sort of, I guess you'd say, your target population, right? And Creo in this case comes predefined with a pretty wide library of anthropomorphically correct human sizes, right? So and the data here mentions anything from genders, right? So males to females, right? Country as well, right? And also the percentile of the size as well. So for example, is this selection over here is a Chinese male that's in the 5th percentile, right? Versus over here in this case, this is a Japanese male that's in the 95th percentile of their size and weight, right? And so again, you're accommodating for the widest population range possible, right? So for example, I could take, let's see, we'll take, and these are also from, different studies that have already been, defined and published, right? So for example, this is from a NASA study. So say, for example, I'll take the 95th percentile here for this male, and we'll take that, and we'll open this. And we can then place that into our Creo design, right? So say, for example, in this case, we're going to place it just right over here, right? And we'll say it's going to be facing, the opposite of this datum plane. So we'll flip that across and we'll say, okay, now this is placed in here, right? Now let's go place a couple more just for context and in order to better understand it. So in this case here, let's say I want to go place a Chinese woman that's in the 5th percentile, right? In this case. Open. All right, so go here and we'll also say, let's face this reference. Yeah, all right, good. And then finally, yeah, we'll place one more, I think. And let's go take the 50th percentile, maybe from the Netherlands or so. Yep. And 50th percentile male from the Netherlands. And we'll specify where we want to place it. Again, the orientation is going to face. And we'll say okay. All right, so now in this case, we have all of those, placed. Oh no, not top. So if we're looking at these head on, right, all of a sudden you'll notice here that, yeah, you'll notice here that, clearly there is a wide range of, body size and shape, right? In terms of height, for example, right? And also in terms of, population based on, region of the world, right? So in this case, a Chinese woman in the 5th percentile is much smaller than the American male in, in the 95th percentile, or the Dutch, person in the 50th percentile, right? Dutch male in the 50th percentile, right? And again, the American over here is also, slightly taller than the Dutch over here as well, right? You can very easily, if I, create a datum plane just like this, you could sort of see, if I put this at the height of the American, you could sort of see there's still that gap, right? So again, when we're designing our products, we have to design for, again, our target population. So if my product is intended to be used internationally, right, then I know I have to accommodate all these different body sizes, right? And if it's a bike, for example, that would mean designing it in such a way where, it can be, for example, maybe adjustable enough to where, the woman here, the smallest person generally from China could ride it, right, in the 5th percentile, and, a large American male could also ride that as well, right? Or if I'm just designing for a specific target population, maybe a Korean population, then I could, use that specific population data, right? But so in this case, the goal is that you have your anthropomorphically correct design, and you could a person, and you can then insert that into your design and see how they can interact with it, right? All right. Now, when it comes to seeing how a person interacts with your design, right? What then becomes important is how you how they manipulate and they fit into the context, right? Because again, not everyone comes in and uses your product standing, right? It could be a wide variety of configurations, right? So you could manipulate them in a few different ways, right? One, for example, is if I select on this over here. Let's see, let's go back to the top level of this. All right, yep. If I go ahead and edit the placement, right? So there are a few different, postures. You could, insert the person standing or also sitting as well. Again, take, for example, a car, right? And if I, toggle that, then again, I'll, select a reference to place them on. We'll say, let's place them on the top plane. And yeah, sure, we can move them there. That's fine. And so again, this is it's a super easy example where you could very quickly modify posture, right? In this case, whether the person is either standing or sitting, right? Another thing that you can also do when it comes to posture is you could also manipulate the person by using the mannequin manipulation button as well, right? And so there are a few different manipulation options here. We're not going to go through everything. One example that I could go over here is, for example, the rotate around an axis, right? And so say, for example, in this case, I'll come to this guy over here. Or actually, no, let's use the woman over here, and we'll take this axis over here, right? All right, which again, in this case here represents the right hip, right? And say, for example, I, type in here 20-degree angle, right? You'll notice, she pushes her leg outward like that, right? And this, pi over here shows me the range of motion of that person, right? So if I go ahead and, bump this up and make it a little higher, maybe I could say 50 degrees or so. All right, yep, so again, 50, in this case here is Yeah, okay, yep, it tries to do that, and in this case it says, okay, pushing that all the way up 50 degrees, that would be way too high, right? So it doesn't regenerate in that way. I could also try, for example, putting in here a negative angle. So if I type in here maybe negative 15 or so, right? Yep, again, it tries to do that, and it says, okay, I can't push my leg backward negative 15 degrees, right? So it says, assembly failed to connect. I can't perform that rotation angle, right? And so really what I show this example here to also communicate the fact that for the mannequins, the way they move is also is as realistic as possible, right? If I can't move my right arm into my torso, right, almost like my torso is invisible, then in this case here in reality for the mannequin, the right arm can only move outward, for example, or any arm can only move outward, and it can't move, into an object or into the person, right? And so this also goes to ensure that, when the mannequin is being manipulated, it's behaving the same way a normal human would also behave and move as well, right? All right. So again, yeah. So now that goes to again using our manipulation tools to twist and move the mannequin. Some other things we could also do as well is there are lots of postures, right? And so if you don't want to twist and push and pull different limbs to a specified configuration depending on what you're doing, you can apply many different postures to your object, right? And it could be everything from macro postures, right? So and any of these over here that's listed, right, to some micro postures, which would be things that involve smaller sections of the body. So for example, changing a hand grip or something like that, right? Yeah, so you could select any of these different postures, and it's just as simple as let's see, maybe for example, yeah, we'll take this posture and we'll see, let's apply that to this mannequin. All right. Yeah. So so essentially, in this case here, it took what's it called? Yeah, this posture over here, and applied it to to this mannequin. And in this case, you can see how it basically, it's sort of like he's basically, I almost want to say in sort of a driving position, right? Now, in this case, it also matters the original placement reference. In this case, I placed him standing, and so it's placing it based on the feet as standing, versus if I placed it sitting, then it would appear more appropriate, right? And so, yeah, you have a wide posture library that you can use as well, right? So if I could go ahead and edit this back and say this should go back to, for example, standing, right? And then maybe I want to apply this sort of seated driving posture to this guy, since this is already placed in the seated configuration, right? All right, yep, and again, you could see how that applies, right? So if I'm designing something that's someone has to sit in order to operate, like a go-kart, then I can just make some minute adjustments to move the arm to, for example, the steering wheel, and then to move the wheels to like the pedals or something, right? All right. All right. So all right. So that talks about, in this case, the the postures, right? Now, why are those important? So basically the people and also the postures. So first off, with the people, it's that, again, you could design for different target populations very quickly and easily, right, without having to create or mock up your own human person in reality inside of Creo, and without having to build a physical prototype just to test it with different population groups, right? And also the other thing in this case with the postures is, instead of spending a lot of time, tweaking and pushing and moving limbs to different, positions, you can use any of the the postures in the posture library that closest fits, you know, what you want to do, and then just tweak from there. So again, that's saving you a lot of time and effort, and makes it much easier to use, right? All right. So next is going to be, you know, looking at mannequins within products, right? So in this example here, we're just, you know, loading up some mannequins, and so I'll switch to a couple of different ones here. So let's probably go to this guy over here. All right. So in this case here, this mannequin is seated inside of a car, right? That we're designing, right? And we could also then test out, for example, the reach, right? So we could say, okay, you know, how is it going to look like if this person here reaches and touches the steering wheel, and also reaches and pushes on the pedals, right? And we can do that. In this case here, we'll go ahead to our manipulation, right? And not only can we push and manipulate, which we're not going to show on here, but we can also save that manipulation when it, you know, in terms of snapshots as well, right? And so in this case here, we'll just go, there's already a snapshot that's saved, and we'll go ahead and apply the snapshot, and you'll notice now our mannequin is gripping onto the steering wheel, right? And their feet, you know, are touching the pedals, right? And we could clearly see, you know, okay, yes, you know, the pedals are not too far out to where, you know, the person can't reach them, for example, right? The other thing that we could also do in this case, you'll notice there were two snapshots in there that already define, you know, the position of you know, different configurations of this mannequin in this scenario over here. We could also replace the mannequin as well, right? So in this case, it's made for, you know, this is a male from an Italian population, and it's the 50th percentile, right? So say we want to test this same design out with, you know, with the bounds as well. So the 5th and the 95th percentile, you know, male Italian population. Well, within Creo, it's very simple for you to just go ahead and hit replace, right? The mannequin is built basically as an interchange assembly, which means that I can go ahead and I think my GoToMeeting here is obstructing the view. All right, there we go. Yeah, I can go ahead and just, you know, select over here from any other, you know, mannequin to replace the existing one here, right? So I could go ahead and pick on my, you know, Italian male, right? 5th or 95th, nope, 95th percentile, right? And hit OK, and go ahead and pull that in, right? And so that again shows you can very easily, you know, create a mannequin in a specific orientation with a specific posture, and then just go ahead and replace one for the other. And whenever you do that replace functionality, Creo is going to retain any snapshots for positions that you've created, and it's also going to retain the posture as well, right? So if I did the replace, in this case, the new mannequin that comes in will take the same posture as the old mannequin as well, right? And so again, that makes your, you know, Creo much easier to use, and you can test out different population sets very quickly and very easily with it, right? All right. Another example in this case that we'll show here with mannequin is for example, I could talk about, you know, the vision window, right? So not only can we look at, for example, you know, in this case, the how they fit with the product and what they're holding on to, but also what they're seeing as well, right? So for example, if my mannequin is oriented in this way, right, this is the vision window. So this is what the mannequin is seeing out of their eyes, right? And so then this can then lead to some product decisions of, okay, you know, for this person here, the dashboard is half of their screen, which, you know, or half of their vision, right? Which, you know, could be problematic because they can't see a lot of what's going on up here. So maybe we should go ahead and push this headrest back a little bit, so that way the person can relax their head back and see more of the screen, or and see more of the windshield, right? And so, you know, thoughts like that, you know, are things that that you can very easily accommodate for in this case by having the mannequin extension, right? Again, This then allows you to design your product in a way where you're accommodating for humans, and so that way your product is much easier to use, right? All right. Next thing we'll show really quickly here. We'll use a very different example. Is let's see. I'll probably use this one over here. All right. So in these examples here, what we'll show is let's see. So over here, you'll notice there are these these bubbles overlaid on top of this woman over here. Let's see. We'll switch to this over here, and we'll show what those bubbles are doing basically. So in the case of a mannequin, I could also create what's called a reach envelope, right? And in this case, I'll select on that mannequin, and Creo will then go ahead and create the reach envelope, right? Oh, just deactivated it for the other one. So let's go reach envelope, this person here. All right, there we go, right? And basically a reach envelope is, if a normal human being moved their hands, in the widest possible, arc or, volume around themselves, the reach envelope is the full 3D space that will be encompassed by their hand, or their hand would be able to interact with, right? And you could sort of, if I move in 3D, you could sort of see it's sort of like two huge, almost sphere-looking objects, right? The reason why that reach envelope is important, right, is say for example in this case over here, I can clearly see that the controls that I want this person to interact with in this design scenario over here are too far from them to reach, right? So I either have to move the controls forward, or I have to move the seat forward to accommodate that, right? Again, designing with the human in mind, making your product easier to use than having to design this out and then field lots and lots of complaints from your operators saying, hey, they're getting a lot of backache just from having to lean forward to access the controls, right? All right. Yeah, so this is sort of in a nutshell, from a high-level overview, what you can do with the Human Factors module inside of Creo Design Essentials. The fact that you can use realistic human models, put them in your design, and then test how they can reach, access, touch, push, pull different items in your design, and also then swapping out the a human model one for the other to test out the full range of the population data that you're targeting. Again, it makes Creo much more easier to use, and it means you can start to design for the end in mind with the human that's going to be interacting with your product, right? All right, so that that goes there to the end of the demonstration session. So we'll switch back. All right, so at this point, are there any questions on what we've covered, what we've talked about? Any questions so far? Let's see. All right, cool. Yep. So there are no questions today, and so I think we'll go ahead and move on to the last section here, which really is just show my contact information. If there are any additional questions about this beyond this webinar, you can reach out to me on the screen over here. Yeah, and I'll be more than happy to either answer any questions you have technically about this, or any other questions about PTC or Creo in general, or put you in touch with the right person that can do that. So thanks so much for watching and tuning in, and we look forward to having you on a future edition of Boundaries Webinar Wednesdays. And once again, if you're not attending this webinar live, it's recorded and it's going to be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. So you could always, you know, search YouTube for boundary systems. You'll get to our channel, and we've already done, you know, tons and tons of these kinds of webinars that are already recorded. So you'll have lots of great content to review on there as well. Thanks for attending, and we look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Thanks. Bye.